You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another rant/random thoughts hybrid. That's right, another random thoughts here today. Now, there's been plenty of times in past videos where I've mentioned that, if I like something, I typically like it not to come back when it comes to media or fiction, right? Because in today's landscape where everything is bastardized and turned into some political message that either wasn't authorial intent, doesn't make sense with authorial intent, or just completely ruins it. Even if it's done by the author themselves, they can ruin their own properties. And not even just with politics, but just making bad follow-ups. I'm not very confident in people's ability to make modern-day follow-ups to things that I like. Now, there have been examples where this has been good, and they have worked out, but nevertheless, that's what I wanted to talk about here today to some degree. Now, what prompted me to make this video was I've recently been watching a YouTube channel called 1984 Lore. It's a great channel, by the way. Fucking love this channel. It's an entire channel dedicated to, lore, theories, and history of George Orwell's 1984. So it's really fascinating because something I like about it is, because as you may know, 1984 is my favorite book. So it's really cool to see a whole channel dedicated to the lore of that universe, because most of the time people just think about it within the constraints of the main story itself. However, watching this channel, I discovered there's actually a modern follow-up to 1984 called Julia that was written in 2023. I have not read this, nor do I intend to, because it sounds like an absolutely abysmal idea. But apparently this follow-up book is a feminist retelling of 1984 from the perspective of Julia. Again, I haven't read it itself, so I don't know all about the content. But I did watch some videos on 1984 lore that mention certain things about it. And one of the issues I have with it, and spoilers for 1984 here, but one of the things that happens in the book is Big Brother is a real person in the book. He exists as a flesh and blood person. And Julia meets him face to face, and he, lives in this mansion called the Crystal Palace, and he has, 10 golden bathtubs and shit. It's stupid. They give him a name, they give him a place to live, they treat him like an actual person, where, if you read 1984, while it's never outright directly confirmed that he does not exist in any way, shape, or form, it's very, very heavily implied. Especially with O'Brien basically insinuating that Big Brother himself is just the representation of the party. The party is Big Brother. The party exists, therefore Big Brother exists. So the fact that this stupid book decides to make him an actual dictator misses entirely the point of the character. Because Big Brother himself is supposed to be an idea, this symbol, this fearful eye proverbially watching you. I'm not going to really edit this, so there you go. There's a flub left in there. But not only that, but Julia herself was always not the most interesting character in 1984. While it's true she's very important to the plot, specifically for Winston, because she's that symbolic rebellion, right? Winston having sex with Julia and going against the orthodoxy of the party, and being with her in ways that are not allowed and are strictly prohibited. It's a symbolic act of defiance. Now, I can see, since this one is apparently a feminist retelling, this awful Julia book, which again I have no intent of reading, my guess is they probably go with an empowerment angle where it's she's using sex herself as rebellion. And it's true, there are elements of that there. So, I can see the framework being laid for how someone could take that, twist it, and make it into a feminist story, right? Because Julia herself is a fucking whore. She's a slut. That's kind of the whole point of the character. And from other videos I've seen on the channel of 1984 lore, it also kind of implies that, again, I haven't read the book, but if what I gathered from the videos I've seen that make mentions of it, apparently Julia was a spy doing this for the government, for Big Brother, for the party, luring in party members at the behest of the inner party. Which, that's, I think, a perfectly plausible theory that Julia herself was a plant. I don't think that's something that should be confirmed, because, again, the ambiguity of several aspects of the story, I think, are part of what make 1984 work so well. But it's funny to me that in a book that's supposed to make you sympathize with her, they make her a two-faced, traitorous bitch. Again, having not read it, so take everything I say about the actual contents of the book with a grain of salt. But that just got me thinking about, modern retellings or follow-ups, sequels, remakes, what have you, of good things, and how they're often fucking terrible. For instance, Chuck Palahniuk himself did a follow-up to Fight Club, right? A comic called Fight Club 2. I can't remember if Fight Club 3 ever got made. He was gonna make one, so maybe it did, I don't fucking know. Fight Club 2 is so terrible that I never bothered looking into if Fight Club 3 ever got finished. But Fight Club 2 is just a complete and total insult to the original, right? Like, they bring Bob back to life, and spoiler, as this fucking zombie type thing, where they chant, his name is Robert Paulson, and then he, like, comes back to life as, like, a zombie. There's literally a part in the story where Jack goes to that cancer lady, or no. Sorry, that cancer lady from the first book survives. She didn't actually have cancer, she was just ugly. And then her and Marla go to Chuck himself within the story, Chuck Palahniuk, and they ask him for plot advice as to what to do next. Like, it's got all this meta shit. They explicitly put Tyler Durden in a homosexual relationship with Angel Face. And while it's true that the original book was homoerotic, and there was, like, you know, weird little things in the movie, too, that doesn't mean you should just make an outright gay relationship between Tyler and Angel Face. That's really fucking weird. Not to mention the fact that they made Tyler this genetic thing that passes down to Jack's son. It's all fucking stupid. The fucking Fight Club 2 is retarded. I gave it a much more positive, albeit lukewarm review when I first reviewed it because I was a lot less negative back then about it. But in recent years, like ever since that review, it's really, really pissed me off just thinking about all the stupid stuff in that story. And another one that's kind of, like, not as big of a thing as, you know, 1984 or Fight Club 2, at least as far as, like, that make me think too much about it, because granted, I haven't watched it yet, but it looks really bad, is that, fucking King of the Hill reboot. Like, you know, Mike Judge can be really good at reboots. Beavis and Butthead has been really good with reboots both times. But this King of the Hill one, there's that screenshot that they released, right? Or that art. And, like, it's so aggressively just, like, shoving it in your face that, like, look, guys, it's modern now. Because they got, like, references to DoorDash, VR, all this other stuff. It's just basically like, look, it's King of the Hill, but modern now, guys. Look, it's modern. You guys see that it's modern now? It's modern, guys. Look at it. And I'm just like, that just is really off-putting to me. Like, granted, I haven't seen any of it yet because it hasn't come out, right? But it does not bode well for me on my expectations. But yeah, King of the Hill, I'm not looking forward to the reboot, honestly. Beavis and Butthead, the reboot is great, so, you know, at least there's that. For now, let's see if they ever fuck it up with future seasons, because that's always a possibility. You can always fuck it up. You know, I'm fine with, like, modern-day adaptations of old shit, obviously. There can be good ones. For instance, the 2019 Color Out of Space movie, I think is probably my favorite Lovecraft adaptation on screen, at least that I've seen. Because, like, it makes pretty significant changes to parts of the story. But it captures all of the key elements, and it captures all of the feel and atmosphere of the story, and the spirit of it. Now, there are some issues I do have with that movie. For instance, the teenage daughter character's kind of stupid. And the guy who's like a land surveyor or a water surveyor or whatever, who's barely in the movie, but, like, he was supposed to be, like, the continuing character because it was originally going to be a trilogy. His inclusion was weird just because of how little he was in the actual movie, but also, like, the dumbest part, and spoiler, he's literally there and survives the blasted heath, like the big explosion that, like, turned everything to ash. He just kind of goes in the basement and that helps him survive. That makes no sense. The whole point of the blasted heath is it wiped out everything there. But somehow this guy just survived, and that was really stupid. Whereas in the original story, there's a guy reporting on it that's going and investigating it, right? And he's going there after the fact, and then he's getting the story told to him through the locals, who heard what happened and stuff like that. Which makes much more sense than him actually being there and surviving the blasted heath. It's just insane to me that they put that in there. It's so stupid. But notwithstanding that, I still think it's a fantastic adaptation, and I really love that movie. Nicolas Cage is fucking great in that movie. But yeah, the main thing that made me want to make this video was that Julia book, because why the fuck would you go back and make a story about fucking Julia? Like, Julia barely has a personality, and I guess maybe that's the argument as to why, right, is to try and expand on her, but she didn't need expanding. Julia herself is not the point of 1984. The bleakness and hopelessness of it is the whole point. The only reason Julia exists in the story as a symbol for Winston's rebellion against the party, against the orthodoxy. And again, I can see the elements of why someone would twist it into a feminist message. It's fucking stupid. In fact, something I always love when I revisit 1984 is I always forget that at the beginning of the book, Winston is incredibly sexist. And I always forget that, and it's always a pleasant surprise, because I fucking love it, because he just starts, like, shit-talking women and saying how, like, you know, oh, probably a woman, or Winston despised women, and stuff. It's so funny to me, the early parts of the book. It's great. And again, maybe that's another reason someone decided to come back and make this shitty follow-up. But, you know, that Julia book, I'm never going to read it. It sounds like absolute horse shit. But, you know, there are plenty of times I am also in favor of things that go against authorial intent, right? Like, for instance, the Watchmen movie. Definitely, Zack Snyder interpreted Watchmen the way most people who read it did, which is not how Alan Moore intended, which is why the movie is better than the comic. I know that's a hot take. I've been over this. But I'm not against things that go against the spirit of what the author intended. But the thing is, 1984 is such an important piece of literature that I don't feel like you can really do that. And, like, the other thing is like, lots of people, like, will write, like, fan fictions of it where they want it to be, like, this hopeful ending that's upbeat and finally the party's defeated and stuff like that, which, again, is also not the point of 1984, because the whole point of 1984 is the hopelessness. Like, maybe there's a glimmer of it within the prose of the story, right? But part of what makes 1984 so profound, and why I loved it so much when I first read it in high school, and why it stuck with me for all these years, is just because of how fucking depressing and bleak the ending is. Like, people want a version of it like that 1984 Apple computer commercial where the lady throws the hammer at the screen, which, again, that commercial itself is a funny little reference, but that kind of thing would never happen in the actual story, because the whole point of the story is just how ridiculously hopeless everything is. Now, granted, again, it wasn't even meant to, like, foretell the future, right? Like, it was analyzing events of the past and present at the time Orwell wrote it, right? Like, Big Brother is very heavily based on Stalin. Goldstein is based on Trotsky. The vaporization of people, you know, when they unperson people and they remove them from photographs and shit. Stalin really did that. So it was, you know, sort of a warning message of the future, but it was also an analyzation of the fucking present and past at the time that Orwell wrote it. Anyway, this is not meant to be a big 1984 analysis. I fucking love that book. I've already done a review of it. And if you guys want, like, in-depth shit, check out that channel, 1984 Lore. He does good content. But nevertheless, it just made me think, you know, I wanted to talk about shitty follow-ups, you know, and also, like, even like, not-so-classic stuff, like, modern stuff, right? Like, Joker. First Joker movie's great. Second one's a fucking abortion. It's fucking terrible. Like, honestly, these movies are fucking, like, the second Joker movie, like, I haven't seen it either, but I do know, and spoiler if anybody cares, which you shouldn't, he gets, like, raped and killed in prison. So, and, like, Harley Quinn is played by, like, Lady Gaga, and it's, I have no desire to see that fucking movie, either. But yeah, basically what I'm saying is if I like something, I often don't want it to come back. Bit rambly here, a couple of tangents here and there, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this Random Thoughts. This has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one. Toodles.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red Eye.